Alrighty, here we go. So I've got Mr. Lane Sawtelle here with me today. Lane is one of our leaders with the Forge Squad. So, um, Lane, thanks for coming on today. Appreciate you taking the time.
Or
Um, just want to start off with kind of asking you about the early days of door to door when you were a rookie. I know you've been doing this for basically about 3 years. Last year was your third. So talk me through kind of how you got into door to door, how you were introduced into it, um, and how that first year went for you.
yeah, so I found out about door to door through one of my really good friends who still works with me. Um, he went and did it for one summer. He did really well, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like he made a lot of money that last summer, and he invited me to do it. And at first, I was a little skeptical, and he did tell me it was gonna be pretty tough. But I did it. A few of my other friends did it, so I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'm gonna give this a shot." And I went out there. It was pretty tough. I didn't do so well my first couple of weeks. I had a kind of a bigger learning curve than most of my friends did.
Hmm.
But after like a month or two, got the hang of it and ended up being one of the top rookies at the branch. So it was definitely a big learning experience. It wasn't something that I was just super naturally gifted at,
Hmm.
but just working at it, yeah, ended up being a great summer.
No, that's awesome. What were kind of some of your concerns when you got introduced to it? You're just now figuring out about it as a rookie. What were some of those concerns going out that you had?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's in another state, so you're kind of like, all right, it's not really. If I'm committing to this, I'm kind of committing to it for a summer. I'm not just
Hmm.
gonna drive out to. I was in North Carolina my first year, so I'm not just gonna drive to North Carolina and be able to just come home after a week or two if I hate it. So that's kind of a concern. I wasn't too concerned about. A lot of people are like, well, it sounds kind of sketchy or whatnot. I wasn't too concerned about that because I had a really good friend who just did it and I trusted him and also just like saw him go through the whole process. But really, that was the biggest thing for me. And then it was also just kind of being scared to fail at it. I was like, well, I really don't want to go out here and just not be good and not make money because that'll suck. But yeah, those were probably my biggest concerns.
How quickly did those concerns kind of um, go away when you got out there for the summer?
Um, it took me about, I feel like, 2 weeks. Once you start kind of making sales a little bit more consistently, and you start kind of just getting your confidence up, and you're like, okay, I can do this. I can be good at this. So yeah, I'd say for me probably 2 or 3 weeks. And then also it did help. I did know a few people going out there. Like I said, my good friend recruited me, so all of those factors kind of helped too.
Right. Okay. Um, if you can remember back to your first summer when you were finished, and even up till now, going through 3 summers,
Mhm.
how do you feel like you've changed as a person, whether it's personally or professionally, any of those things? How do you feel that the job itself has changed you, either in good or bad ways?
Um, yeah, I feel like I've definitely changed a lot since my first summer, like professionally and personally for sure. I feel like my first summer going into it, it was kind of just like, all right, I was a sophomore in college. I was just looking at it as like a summer internship. I was like, I have no clue what I want to do professionally wise. And so it was just really cool that first summer to just get in a good culture of a bunch of young guys who wanted to make money, wanted to, not just be average and, want to succeed. And so that kind of set me on a path professionally and more personally too, to where I'm just like, more business minded, but more looking to succeed and be above average.
Right. No, that's perfect. What do you think were one or two highlights of your first, second, or third summer? Like, what is the most enjoyable for you?
Definitely just the guys that we're out there with every single summer. I mean, there's not too many jobs where it's like the oldest person you're working with is like 25, 26.
Hmm.
Um, so it's just a really fun squad every single year I've done it, and that's definitely the best part is just making new friends, seeing friends that I see every single year, and just hanging out with them on the weekends after work and all of that. That's definitely the best part.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Um, if you can remember back from your first summer, do you remember how many days you worked?
Oof. I did stay out longer than most people did, but I got there kind of late.
Okay.
I'd say I probably worked 100 days,
Okay. Do you
maybe.
remember? Do you remember how much money you made your first summer?
I made about 27, 27 my
Twenty-seven
first time.
thousand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's pretty typical. How did that make you feel from like an income perspective? I know money's not everything, but it
Yeah.
does help.
Um,
As your first year, how did that make you feel to be able to do that?
well, it was pretty crazy for me because I just came back to college and all of a sudden I went from being broke to just actually having money in my bank account.
Right.
So it was a pretty big difference. It felt pretty awesome. Um, but more importantly, I didn't have to work during the school year anymore. I could just focus more on my schoolwork and had a lot more free time that way. And yeah, it kind of just put things more in perspective for me that it's like, okay, I can go do a job in the summer, work 90 days or whatever it is, and come back with this, or I can work all school year long for 20 hours a week and get paid hourly. And
Right.
it kind of put that thing and those things into perspective for me for the first time, which was pretty cool.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a pretty awesome experience, especially when you feel that for the first time.
Yeah.
Um, so obviously that's kind of right where people fall for their first summer, but now that you're coming up on your fourth summer, you've got your own team now, and being as young as you are, you basically have already surpassed making six figures in a year, and you've only been in it for 3 years. Did you kind of expect that to happen after you came back, for a couple more summers, or was that kind of a surprise for you?
I'd say it was like a little bit, almost a little bit of both. I mean, I knew it was for sure a possibility with this
Hmm.
job. There's tons of opportunity to make a lot of money doing this job, especially when it comes to building your own team. So I always knew it was a possibility. I just always like, in the beginning, you're like, well, you kind of doubt yourself as a recruiter. You're like, man, can I get that many guys to do this job? Like, how do I show people the opportunity here and stuff? But no, not a huge surprise. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of opportunity here, which is really cool, and there's a lot of room to grow. So, but
How
it's
does
pretty.
that how does that make you feel being able to produce that amount of income just based off of your own effort at such a young age?
I mean, it's pretty awesome, I guess.
Yeah.
No, but it's good. It just like builds your confidence. I mean, we're all out here like trying to make money, really to just have more freedom and to do what we want to do and do the things that we want to, try and see. So it's pretty awesome to be able to do that, and especially at a young age. I mean, a lot of it now is about saving, but
Right.
it's pretty. Yeah, it's a cool spot to be in.
For sure. For sure. What do you think are one or two of the kind of hardest things you experienced over your first summer? Obviously, you know what to expect now,
hmm
going into a summer, but that first summer having almost no idea what you were walking into, what
Yeah.
were some of the hardest things that you experienced?
Um, I would say the hardest thing is at first just the mental aspect of it. It's like you're talking to 100 something people every single day, and you're looking for one, two, especially in the beginning, just one or two, three yeses. And that kind of mental chess aspect all day long of you just like, oh, I haven't made a sale yet. That's definitely the hardest part. It wears on you when you're out there. It's hot. You've been out there for 6 hours and you haven't made a sale. But now being a little bit more experienced, it's like, well, you can go 4 hours, but there's two sales around the corner. But
Hmm.
definitely when you first start out, that's the hardest aspect of it for sure.
I agree. Yeah. Well, if you were to kind of rank it on a, at least for your first summer, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being it was much harder than you had expected, and one being it was much easier than you had expected. How would you kind of rate that experience?
Yeah, I'd give it like an 8 or 9. It was pretty up there.
Right.
It was like, especially going. I just my really good friend who did it made a lot of money his first summer, and so I'm like, oh, if he can do that, I'm like, I can definitely do this too. And then I got out there and I was like, yeah, this is a lot harder than I expected.
Mm,
Go out there for a few days, don't make some sales, and like we talked about, that mental aspect can really get to you. So yeah, it was really difficult, and then also it's kind of physically demanding too. You're out there walking around at first all day long, at least until you earn a segue. And that's tiring. It can be really hot depending on your market. Like North Carolina, it was crazy hot. So
hmm.
that's also another tough part. But it all kind of adds up when you're out there, especially if you're not in the right mental aspect.
Right. Yeah, and I guess if you were to go back to your first summer, whether it's training before the summer or anything that you could have done before the summer or during the summer, what were some things that if you were to redo your first summer with the knowledge that you have now, what were some things that you may have changed or improved on?
I definitely would have trained more before. It was like I said, my best friend kind of got me to do it. So it was like he'd text me about trainings and stuff. I'd be like, oh, I don't want to do that right now. Like, I was in college. I was like, I just want to hang out with my friends. So I did not train much before going out there. So when I got out there, I was like, oof, I barely know the pitch. I was like,
Yeah.
this is going to be tough. And like I said, I had a really big learning curve. It took me like 2, 3 weeks to really start getting the hang of it. Definitely wouldn't have been the case if I did, a couple of trainings before the summer actually started. So,
Right.
which there were definitely training opportunities. I just was kind of pushed them off and was like, no, I'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
So if there was a thing or two that you wish you were told before your first summer, do you think that would be one of them, or would it
Oh,
be
for
different?
sure. No, for sure. Definitely be trained. Um, that's the biggest one, and then also it's just again that mental aspect of it's like even doing all the trainings, you're still gonna go out there. You're still gonna have a learning curve, and that's a huge thing to know. David helped me through that my first year. He was those first couple weeks are tough. Once you start getting a few sales and understanding the whole sales process, it gets so much easier.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty much all I had for you today. I appreciate it. If you can, just leave one or two pieces of advice for somebody that is probably never done this job and they're a little bit intrigued. They're thinking about it. What's some advice that you would give to them as they're kind of thinking through that process, and then also after they commit to going out to their first summer.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first one would be, like I said, train, practice off your scheduled calls, do the time on your own to practice. A lot of the top reps and the top rookies are the guys who put in the trainings before the summer starts. Like I said, I did it, and it definitely made the job a lot harder for me in the first 3 weeks, which is already the hardest couple of weeks.
Mhm.
Second thing being is be prepared to work really hard, but also be prepared to have fun and be able to manage that. Like I said, there's a dope group of guys out there. There's like 30, 20, 21, 22 year olds. So it's a lot of fun, but also there's a lot of hard work that has to be done to be able to have that fun on the weekends like we do. And so be ready to manage that, but be also to be ready to work really, really hard in those 5.5 days.
Absolutely. Perfect, man. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm excited for the next year coming up. I know it's going to be a successful one for us, but I'll let you get back to your Monday. Thanks, man.
All right, thanks, Donald.
Yep.